this much more profound discussion around the classificatory impulse, this will to classify that comes through AI systems and what the downstream results are going to be of those sorts of systems. So from turning to that to thinking a little bit about regulation, I really want to provoke the room for a different question, which is ask, what is our theory of change here? I mean, one of the reasons that we created the AI Now Institute several years ago now was precisely to really contribute to this history of critical AI studies, but also to think about theories of change. Because I think it's not enough for us just to sort of, sit in our high chairs and say, oh, well, I mean, this is terrible, there's a will to classify, we've seen a long history of this is not good. That's not really going to cut it when you're looking at extraordinarily powerful systems being run by less than 7 companies worldwide, who are some of the richest companies that there are. I mean, realistically, we're looking at something that is much more urgent than simply just sort of looking at its obvious limitations. So what I would suggest in terms of theories of change is that regulation has very real issues in terms of how it is made, particularly in the US, and particularly sort of lobbying schemes that go behind it. But I think it is important that we are starting to see technology companies say, these tools actually require regulation. Now, to some degree, we can dive into the histories of why they're saying that and where that can be self-serving and where it might not be. But certainly when I see what just happened in San Francisco this week, where there was a ban of facial recognition only in some contexts, obviously, it's, again, no legislation is perfect, but it has shown that there is a desire to push back on the so-called inevitability of these tools. The idea that they must always be rolled out, they cannot be stopped, and all we can do is carve out these small spaces with terms like privacy or ethics written on them. We can do much more, and I think there's actually a culture of refusal that is starting to build, and I think that is one of these areas for our theory of change that I think is incredibly important. The second one I obviously want to briefly mention here because it's something very important to the AI Now Institute is worker organizing. We've seen extraordinary worker organizing within tech companies. We've seen it inside Google, Microsoft, Amazon, Uber. The list is getting very long indeed. And what is important about that is we're starting to see the call coming from inside the house. We're seeing workers saying, we have real concerns about the way that these tools are being designed and deployed, and we actually want to shut it down. That is, again, a very powerful theory of change. It, again, has limitations. But when we start to think about these sorts of spaces, I want us to try and think, what does change look like? Because that is, I think, going to be one of the most important questions we can answer in the next decade.
Yeah,